You might remember just a few months ago, Axios posted the results, such as they were, of an anonymous poll from an anonymous group that purported to show that AOC and other progressives in Congress like her are bad for the Democrats. And so this was an article that initially came out and generated a lot of attention. AOC's defining the Dems in the swing states, and you should be worried, Democratic Party. And in the initial reporting, Mike Allen said, these are the white non-college voters who embraced Donald Trump in 2016, but are needed by Democrats in swing House districts.
No, they're not.
The group that took the, well, hold. Spoiler alert. The group that took the poll shared the results with Axios on the condition that it not be named because the group has to work with all parts of the party. That's why they said they didn't want to be named. I would say sheer cowardice because they didn't want to get dragged across the internet by AOC and her millions and millions of fans. But here's the issue. We don't know the group. We don't know who leads the group. We don't know how they conducted the survey. We can sort of get an idea of what they were going for since they seem to exclusively talk to people who would not support AOC and would never support a Democratic candidate anyway.
Certainly.
Exactly. And
okay,
so
I don't know which group it is, but it doesn't matter. It's a corporate Democrat. But the thing I wanted to clarify before John went on is the Republicans didn't do this poll. The Democrats did.
Yes.
The corporate Democrats and the leaders of the party spread it everywhere. This is them attacking their own again for the 100th time in a row. And it's gonna be relevant to some of the stats we're gonna tell you about.
And it was around that time that Nancy Pelosi was talking about like, oh, they have their internet whatever, but that's all they have. And so this was really great for a certain type of person because then the Democratic leadership uses it as fuel to attack some of their most dynamic and interesting and passion-inducing members. But also Donald Trump started using it. So good job to the anonymous organization that started it. Bad job if what you wanted was an accurate poll though, because now we have one. We have the group, we have the methodology. Data for Progress made this available online. Take a look at this. It's a number of different groups and individuals, their net favorability. Now, this is politics, and so in general, net favorability is negative, but there were certain positives. Both clean energy companies and climate activists are viewed positively, but then you get into the individuals. What you find there is that AOC is right up at the top, right next to Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. AOC at a net -6. Now that may sound really negative, but when you look at other prominent politicians, you've got Donald Trump is down there at a -14, Nancy Pelosi at a -17, Mitch McConnell's at a -29. That's actually double negative, which is not how it works. But and so now we actually have a survey from battleground states. So what now, anonymous group? They actually talk to voters. And it turns out that AOC might well be the face. She might well be defining the Democratic Party, but it looks like a good thing compared to the other options that the Democratic Party have.
So before we go on to even more great polling for the Just Democrats and all progressive politicians, especially compared to the corporate Democrats and the Republicans, I want to go back to the original poll that was done. So it's a Democratic group that does a poll of basically the biggest Trump demographic there is. So white, uneducated voters. Now they do that poll full well knowing and trying to get a result that says people don't like AOC, okay? Now, and the other thing that they polled was socialism. So that you poll core Trump supporters on that, then you turn around and you leak it to the press, and then you give it to the Democratic leadership, who of course asked for it in the first place. And Democratic leadership spreads it everywhere. So I know this even beyond what's in the press reporting, okay? So every member of Congress was like, oh, do you know how unpopular the Just Democrats are? AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, we should throw them under a bus. They're really unpopular, they're hurting all the rest of us. The Trump voters said so. Trump voters don't like her. Okay, so it's so incredibly disingenuous. Or maybe they are stupid. They're like, oh, we're this close to getting the most deplorable people in America to vote for us. If it wasn't for that gosh darn AOC, hardcore Trump supporters would have supported Nancy Pelosi? Only an idiot would make that claim or believe that claim, which is about 98% of Washington. And by the way, it is true, and even the new poll that's actually accurate went on to show that hardcore Trump supporters dislike AOC even more, okay? Now, or in Ilhan Omar even more. But they're hardcore Trump supporters. They voted for Trump. They weren't about to switch over and vote for Ilhan Omar. It's preposterous. But under any and all polls, Democratic leadership, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, poll worse in every instance. It doesn't matter. But that's not getting spread around all around Washington. Why? We have an uneven playing field on 2 counts. So number one, progressives don't fight back enough. Like AOC gets a lot of press, and you think Omar Tlaib, et cetera. I mean, look at how strong they are, and they're wonderful, and Bernie and Warren. Yes, but no. Internally, colleagues. So they keep getting punched in the face in Washington and not fighting back. If I was in their staff, I would put this in every mailbox of every Democrat and go, Nancy Pelosi's hurting us. In the polling, and I'm gonna give you more numbers in a second, she is second worst only to Mitch McConnell. She's a disaster. It's true, she's a train wreck. But progressives wouldn't do that because they're too goddamn nice, okay? Whereas the corporate Democrats, they'll shiv you in the middle of the night and then pretend that they care about unity and colleagues. There's one of the reasons. So the hardcore Trump supporters, why is there the big unfavorability? Because it's commonly known as the Fox News effect, but it's actually Fox News MSNBC effect. Fox News attacks AOC, Tlaib, and Omar, and Ayanna Pressley, et cetera, so much more, so it poisons the pool with hardcore Trump supporters and conservatives against those particular Congress people. So some people know that, and that's the Fox effect, right? But MSNBC never rises to their defense.
No.
So their favorability does not go up equally among Democrats. Now, if Young Turks, for example, was, and I just pick this as an example because it's an actual progressive news organization and network, and I literally don't know any others in terms of television, video, et cetera. If we were shown in as many places, et cetera, then it would balance out. But MSNBC goes, oh, corporate Democrats are amazing. Here's Claire McCaskill, we're paying money to. She just lost running as a corporate Democrat in Missouri. Tell us how we win elections, right? Oh, AOC, I don't know about AOC, I don't know. And constant criticism on Morning Joe and by all their stupid Republican and corporate Democrat consultants. So you have an uneven playing field. But even so, according to the new polling, the corporate Democrats poll 1,000 times worse. We're gonna get into the numbers. Dan.
It's so amazing to me. First off, I love Data for Progress because they're some of the only people doing real data analysis work on things that are usually overlooked by the media technocracy, things like radicalization on the right, et cetera. But with this, this data, this poll is so obvious that if I were working in the Axios political media bubble right now, I would go home this Friday, pour myself a bottle of scotch on the rocks and just, whole bottle, and just think about myself, just really think. Because what's also happening in addition to what you're saying, Cenk, it's not just a Fox News, MSNBC effect, but the elites who work at some of these organizations who have these preconceived notions about 2020, like, oh, Biden's definitely gonna do well, then polling eventually supports that because the feedback loop's out of order. They're not gonna look at this and go, oh, I guess it's wrong. I guess AOC is actually really popular for progressives and we're going to change every sort of approach we have towards progressive politics. Of course, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, because it's not, just sorry, to finish that thought, it's not because they're actually stupid. It's because they're biased.
Yeah.
But their bias is so thick that they literally can't see straight. They can't see the facts. You'll show them this poll. First of all, they won't get it because it won't be stuffed into their inbox. Like the corporate Democrats bother to pay to try to politically assassinate just Democrats. I just mean it politically. But they did a hit job on them. Now, there's no one paying to spread this poll around and putting it in every, and going to calling every media organization. Are you covering this? Are you covering this? Are you covering this? Like they did with the old poll meant to go after progressives. So that's a giant disparity and leads to some of that results. But even if they did see it, they'd be like, no, I don't. No, I think the other poll's better. But the other poll doesn't even tell you who did it. And has no reliability at all. This shows you the data and downloads the data. You could check it online. I'm not good with internet. I saw another poll. That said Joe Biden's awesome. It was done in my house between me and my wife. But I saw another poll, right?
Like they had dinner after work with some of their buddies and were like, hey, what's going on? Oh, I think this. And that's what they think politics is. They don't actually pay attention to the information. It's all like a friend circle thing.
Yeah, or they think, well, I don't need polls. I read a tweet by Nate Silver. I think I have an idea of where the data lies. We have people in DC, why don't we put it in everybody's mailbox? But I'll also say, one of the reasons I find this data even more interesting is because, as we know, Fox News and right-wing media generally, they have not stopped talking about AOC and Ilhan Omar for like 9 months now. It is just constant, and it's all lies, not reflective of their actual policies. Sometimes accidentally, Sean Hannity will post a list of their policies and it looks really good and he looks stupid by comparison, but they have talked about them nonstop, attempted to do as much damage as they can to their reputation. And so you would imagine that Trump supporters would have them foremost on their mind in terms of awful Democrats, awful libs, awful progressives, and still far more popular, far more popular, I would imagine, than people like Mitch McConnell. Some elements even of the Republican establishment who are not popular on the right wing.
So here, I'm gonna give you more stats because I love them. So the first one that John mentioned was just favorability overall. So all the politicians are negative, which is already awesome and funny. But Elizabeth Warren's at the very top. Do you hear that on television all the time and in the print? Like, she's not getting terrible coverage, but are they saying, oh, she ranks the best in favorability over and over and over? No, they keep talking about how Biden's the most electable.
Yeah, but just in battleground states, those ones aren't important.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, I'm gonna get to battleground districts in a second. This is the overall one. Well, Ilhan Omar, she polls at -12. Remember, all the politicians are minuses, okay? Well, that sounds pretty bad. So obviously we can't follow her. We gotta follow Nancy Pelosi. What does she poll at? Oh no, -17. Well, okay, how about Chuck Schumer? He's, oh man, that's leader of the Democrats in the Senate, real solid, -19, okay? Who's the most unpopular person in almost every one of these polls? Mitch McConnell. This is overall polling, it's not of Democrats, it's overall polling. -29 for Mitch McConnell. People despise Mitch McConnell. I mean, you don't see that on television, okay? But overall, he is loathed by the American people. So now we go to battleground districts. Number one politician in the country, again, Elizabeth Warren. Democratic Party actually polls pretty well. It clocked in at 0, which is impressive for politicians. Now you might say, well, Cenk, that doesn't sound impressive. Well, where did the Republican Party come in? -35 in battleground districts.
Folks, you love to see it.
0 to -35, okay? Wow, holy cow, all right? So AOC, how does she come in? Near the very top. Elizabeth Warren's #1 among actual politicians of the ones that they polled. Bernie Sanders is #2. Ayanna Pressley's #3. These are all the most progressive people in the country. Then AOC, then finally Joe Biden. Wait, I thought Joe Biden was the most electable in the battleground areas. But it turns out AOC is significantly more popular than Joe Biden in battleground areas.
Well, and also I think that we should add on to that in the same way that I was just saying that Fox has focused heavily on AOC and other members of the squad. I mean, Joe Biden has done his best to not talk about his platform. He joined the race later than a lot of the other candidates. And so to some extent, he's been insulated from the criticism that is going to come his way. People are gonna find out more about him as the race goes on.
Like, not only insulated, but like he's screwed because his campaign strategy is, Joe, you know everything about me, but just deal with it. That's basically his campaign strategy now, once people start to learn all the bad things about him.
Yeah. So, but again, context. So Elizabeth Warren is top politician with a net 1 favorability, okay? AOC comes in after Sanders and Presley at 4th at -5. Biden's at -7. So where does Pelosi? -21. They hate her in the battleground districts. And people keep saying, oh, it's because she's progressive or liberal. And that's what, if you turn on television, you could watch, you read the New York Times, Washington Post, they will get this wrong 100% of the time. Battleground areas are worried that she's too liberal. How about AOC? And AOC is obviously, everybody knows AOC is more liberal. She polls 16 points higher. How about Elizabeth Warren? She polls 22 points higher. Everybody knows. Bernie Sanders. Is anybody gonna make an argument that Bernie Sanders is anything but liberal or progressive? And he polls way above Nancy Pelosi, way above her. Finally, on that battleground one, guess who's the most unpopular politician in the country? Mitch McConnell, of course. Even worse than Donald Trump at -41. That is the Republican leader in the Senate in battleground districts at -41. Okay, so what you see in the mainstream media, honestly, is alternative facts. Last one, because this is one of my favorites. They actually polled Trump voters, literally. Now, these are Obama to Trump voters, but they all voted for Trump. And I'm shocked that they voted for Obama, but all their patterns indicate they like the Republican Party and they like Trump. So it's unsurprising that Trump does really well in this because they voted for him. Republican Party does really well. Okay, you get that. Even the fossil fuel companies are positive. For Trump voters, they're like,
That's sick.
Destroying the planet, you say, huh?
Oh, God.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I can live with that. Anyway, with all other Americans, they polled terribly, but with Trump supporters, they're like, yes, we don't need this planet. We'll go to another one. Anyway, so we are told, well, and the previous polls seem to indicate, the one that was widely publicized. Well, I mean, the Trump supporters don't like AOC. That's why we should be against AOC. I mean, I can't, every time they say that, I can't stand how irrational that is. It's so dumb. I can't believe anyone said it out loud. Anyway, so, well, in this case, look at that. AOC is right above Nancy Pelosi. Rashida Tlaib is way above her. Ilhan Omar also above her. So what did Pelosi come in with at Trump voters? I mean, I'm not the one saying Trump voters are important. I think 25% of the country that's gonna vote for Trump no matter what, never, ever bothered to get them. We should be insulting them. We should be fighting against them. They're never gonna vote for you. Are you that dumb that you'd cost your own base, millions of people who could get energized and vote, to try to get one Trump supporter that's part of the deplorables? Are you that stupid? And the answer for the Democratic Party is not really. They pretend to be that stupid because what they wanna do is say, now remember, that's why we have to vote for all corporate interests, okay? And that's what the Trump supporters want. That's why we have to do it, right? Anyway, you ready? What does Nancy Pelosi poll at? Minus 62.
Oh.
Now, I don't think it should be the standard.
Oh, that's bad.
But the corporate Democrats said that should be the standard for whether you support a Democratic politician or not. Well, I guess Nancy Pelosi should be fired immediately. In every one of these, she's almost every one of these, she's the second least popular politician in the country after Mitch MCConnell. And this one, unsurprisingly, she's the least popular.
Yeah.
And so even by their own standard, the progressives poll way better than Democratic leadership. And by any standard, Democratic leadership should be embarrassed, humiliated, and immediately step down. Because they're costing us elections. We can't afford to lose to Donald Trump by having Pelosi and Schumer in charge.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.